In this video, I'll be installing recliner back springs. The back I have on the bench is from a 2009 La-Z-Boy recliner. If you need help with removing the back, see my video on that subject. Recliner backs come in many different styles and shapes, but the basic principles I'm showing you today regarding back spring installation apply to many brands out there. So let's get started. When back or seat springs break or come loose, naturally you'll lose some of the support they provide. This is usually more noticeable in the seat because those springs carry more of your weight. But even if you don't feel any difference when a back spring breaks, it's pretty easy to see the problem. Usually all you have to do is look at the outside back panel. So let's take a look. Here we have a piece of spring sticking through the fabric. This is what you'll often see with a broken spring. Sometimes it won't be sticking through like this, but it'll be pushing out against the material instead. If the spring has come loose but is not broken, you may feel some of the body of the spring pushing against the material like this here. So a quick check of the outside back panel is the easiest way to determine if a spring has failed or broken. To repair these issues, we'll have to loosen some of this outside back panel. So let's start with this bottom section. Since La-Z-Boy tends to only install a couple of springs towards the bottom of their back frames, you can often access them without loosening a lot of material, and often install them from behind like this as well. But in this case, there are 3 springs, and the uppermost one has a loose clip up here. So we'll need to access these springs from the front. To do that, we'll need to remove more of these staples, as well as the 2 back brackets. Okay, now we can lift off the front of the inside back for better access to the springs and clips. You can remove the springs on this Lazy Boy by hand, but the U-shaped clips are often crimped to prevent that. So you want to use a tool, like a flat screwdriver, to spread them apart so they're easier to remove. And I've already done that here, so let's go ahead and remove this spring. As far as replacement springs are concerned, it's usually best to use the manufacturer replacement parts when you can. That way your springs will be cut to length, like this one, and ready to install. And while you're at it, you can order any replacement clips you may need as well. Here's one of the spring clips used on this back. It has prongs on one end that are hammered into the frame to hold it in place, and the U-shaped end is where the spring attaches. But if you can't get the manufacturer parts for whatever reason, you can get springs and clips from an upholstery supplier or perhaps a local upholstery shop if you have one in your area. So save your old springs, because if you have to cut new ones to fit, they should be the same length as the old ones. We install a spring basically the same way. Just hook it into the clips. Then you finish up by crimping the clip again or tapping it down. From the front side, I use a tack hammer for that purpose. If I'm installing these springs from the back, I'll use something like a short clamp to crimp the clip again. With mass-produced recliner backs like this Lazy Boy, since you don't have to deal with the brace wire, you can see that installing recliner back springs is typically much easier and faster than replacing recliner seat springs. Now I'm going to stop here because the joint on the bottom of this frame needs repaired. It's separated, and that's a common problem with Lazy Boy back frames. See my video on that subject for a frame repair demonstration. All right, the back frame has been repaired. Now we can install the new springs. Since 2 of the 3 springs were broken, I'm going to install 3 new ones. But before I can do that, I'm going to have to reattach this loose spring clip. Once I have the springs installed, then comes the real job of reattaching the inside and outside back panels. Now keep in mind, how much of this material you have to take loose depends entirely on where the spring or springs are located that you want to replace. So for example, if it's just one spring towards the bottom of this frame, you can usually get by loosening the lower portion of the outside back panel and replacing that spring from behind. A lot less work than we have here. So the general rule is, the further your spring is mounted up the back frame, the more material you'll have to take loose to access it. So, let's finish this repair. So to sum things up, you'll want to loosen enough of the cover to gain access to the back springs you want to replace. Then open the clips, remove the spring, install a new one, and bend the clips back. Then reattach the cover. Here's a final tip. Whenever you replace any back or seat springs, take the opportunity to inspect the frame. If there are any loose joints or other issues, first remove the springs to take tension off of the frame. Then repair or replace the frame before installing the new springs. Keep in mind that if you order a new frame, you can often order it sprung up, which means with the new springs already installed.